You know that feeling? Maybe it's at work or in a group you're part of. Something big happens. A project fails, a scandal breaks, and then just quiet. It's a silence that's so much heavier than just a lack of noise, right? Well, today we're going to dig into exactly what that is. So, what are we supposed to make of that quiet? Does it mean everyone's suddenly on the same page? That it's all resolved? Or is there something else going on? There's a reason we feel so uneasy in those moments. So, what's really happening when the conversation just stops?
All right, let's really get into the anatomy of this thing. To understand what's going on, we've got to define it first. See, this isn't just a bunch of people deciding not to talk. It's something different, a state that kind of emerges on its own.
Okay, so here's the key idea. Collective silence is not some secret plan. Nobody gets in a room and agrees, okay, everyone, shut up. It happens when the situation itself shifts, so that the responsibility to speak up is no longer on any one person. Instead, that responsibility just sort of dissolves into the environment, into the arrangement of the situation as the source material calls it. It's like it evaporates into the air. And this is where we usually get it wrong. We see the silence and we assume, okay, I guess everyone agrees, or, well, that's settled then. But what's actually happening is totally different. It's not agreement, it's a void. It's a vacuum that's been created because accountability got spread so thin across the entire system that no single person feels like they can or should hold it anymore.
Which leads to the million-dollar question, right? If no one person is responsible, where did the responsibility go? Did it just poof, disappear?
And the core idea here is, no, it doesn't vanish. Think of it like putting a single drop of blue dye into a big glass of water. The dye doesn't disappear, does it? It dissolves. It spreads out until you can't point to the original drop anymore, but the entire glass of water is now tinted blue. That's what happens to responsibility. It becomes part of the system preserved inside the silence itself. So let's throw a modern curveball into the mix. This whole dynamic isn't new, but our technology today, and yeah, I'm talking about AI, can act like a huge catalyst. It can reinforce this whole structure of silence in some really new and powerful ways. So here's how that can happen. Let's say we outsource a task, like summarizing a complicated conflict or making a judgment call, to an AI. We're not just being more efficient, we're actually changing our own role in the process. Suddenly, we're put into a setup, a configuration, where our own voice, our own judgment, isn't really needed anymore. And when that happens, that already fuzzy sense of responsibility gets spread out even thinner.
Now, this isn't to say that ethics just disappears or that we're suddenly in some moral-free zone. Not at all. The ethical questions are still there, but they've become unmoored. They're just floating around with no person, no process to really attach to. It's like ethics has lost its home. And that displacement? That's the real heart of collective silence.
So, if we're not supposed to blame individuals and we're not supposed to blame the AI, what are we supposed to do? Well, the idea here is to make a pivot, to move away from pointing fingers and toward a totally different kind of awareness. This quote just reframes everything. It's not about finding the bad guy, it's about learning to see the structure as it's being built. The real challenge is to notice the conditions that make silence the easiest, most logical outcome. It's really a question of perception, of observation. And that really brings us to the final thought here. When we run into this kind of silence out in the world, how should we look at it? What does it actually represent? This is the question we're left with, and it's a big one. Do we see silence as the end of the story, case closed? Or could we see it as something else? Maybe like a fossil. A preserved trace of an accountability that was definitely there, but that no person and no part of the system was able to actually grasp. Maybe the answer isn't to rush in and break the silence, but instead to learn how to read it.